Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 524 of Screw the Commute podcast. Today we're going to talk about beginning videography with Marc Bullard. And of course, I'm going to throw my 2 cents worth in because I believe I had my first video company before he was born. So I do have a lot to say about video, but he's a full-time guy that does this all the time, professional at it. And you might want to check out his episode 522 we did last week, where he talked about beginning video editing, not advanced video editing, because that's probably far out of what you want to get your fingers dirty in, but simple stuff can really help you go faster and get a lot more video done in a hurry. And if you hear any noise, we got somebody's working on my gutters here, and I'm resisting very heavily to not say something, but I'll probably say it anyway because his name is Brandon, and so I want to say, let's go, Brandon. Shut up. I'm doing a podcast. But I didn't say it. His name is really Brandon. He really messed up. He should have bought that domain name as soon as all that Let's Go Brandon stuff came out. All right. So hope you didn't miss episode 523. That was social media strategy. It's my simple strategy, even after our social media person left. I've got this down to a simple strategy that will save you enormous amounts of time. You'll do less posting of higher quality, and you'll concentrate on engagement. I had a little simple 5-step process. So you got to check out that episode 523. Anytime you want to get to a back episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number, that's 523. All right, how'd you like me to send you big affiliate checks or PayPal or gold bullion or crypto if I knew what that was, how to do it? But if you refer our stuff, you can get big affiliate commissions. I mean, for certain kinds of speaking engagements, it can be in excess of $5,000. For my school, it can be up to $3,800. And we have everything down to small ones for just ebooks, but still it adds up. So check that out by emailing me at tom@screwthecommute.com if you're interested in hearing the details of that, of how you can make money referring our programs. All right, make sure you pick up a copy of our automation ebook. This ebook has saved me, and I just I was just talking to the neighbor who's getting carpal tunnel surgery tomorrow. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been on the computer full time, 7 days a week for, almost 30 years now, and have no carpal tunnel because of the way I hold my hand and the way I work. But I know I've done way more keystrokes than most people on earth. At any rate, if you're worried about carpal tunnel, you got to download my ebook because it'll just save you millions of keystrokes and mouse clicks and everything because of the simple, free, and cheap techniques that are in the book. We sell it for $27, but it's yours free for listening to the show. So check it out at screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. While you're at it, pick up a copy of our podcast app at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. And you can put us on your cell phone and tablet and take us with you on the road. Now, if you're really serious that you'd like to really jack up your video skills, we have a very unique thing called a VIP video weekend. It's at screwthecommute.com/video weekend. And we can do it for small groups up to 4 or 5 people. In fact, if you put together a group of yourself and 4 other people, you get to come free. How you like that? But you can come by yourself, and we do a whole day in our studio, and also teaching you what to do with the videos, basic video editing, how to use them on social media, all that stuff. And then the second day, I take you out into the field and teach you how to do really exciting marketing videos wherever you happen to be. So instead of doing all talking head, which is kind of a boring channel, you can be out and about in Virginia Beach or anywhere you happen to be and show you how to make that situation fit your marketing message. and it's very cool and it's unique. Nobody else does this for you. So check that out at screwthecommute.com/video weekend. We don't have any actual ones scheduled right now, but again, we can schedule a small group if you put it together, or individuals. All right, let's get to the main event. We're talking about basic videography. In other words, how to shoot video so that you get the results that you need. So I'm going to bring on Marc. Marc is a long-time video professional, went to school for it, has been doing it full-time ever since, and he has been working here for 150 years or something and does freelance stuff. Also written several books on YouTube marketing. So he'll tell you about those too as we go. But Marc, you ready to screw?
Yes.
All right. You had to think about it there for a second, huh? So, all right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'm going to jump in with, I have a lot of my own tips, and tell them what you think they need to get started to doing good video.
Okay, great. Good video. Well, a lot of my tips today are going to be focusing on shooting, and specifically shooting on a phone, iPhone or Android, because that's kind of where things are leaning that way. So even if you're not shooting on a phone, these tips will cross over to a camera, but I might mention the word phone over and over, but it can go hand in hand with the word camera. Anyway, when we are shooting, we were presenting something on the screen, usually that is going to either evoke an emotion or sell a product or provide information. And so what do we put on that screen? And actually, more importantly, what don't we put on that screen? Well, that is all down to the composition of your shot. And the composition is what is in the actual rectangular screen that people are going to be seeing, and actually you're going to be watching as well. When you are shooting, and this is important for the phone, most of the time you are going to be shooting in a horizontal position. So you're going to be holding the phone the long way. So it's going to be rectangular, but long, like on the horizon, horizontal. So keep that in mind. There are certain platforms that you do record in vertical mode, such as TikTok and others. But
and that used to be taboo. That used to be like, oh, you're an idiot if you did that. Because
exactly.
You'd see YouTube videos with black bars on the side.
Right.
But now it's very common in these other platforms.
It is, but it's not the majority. So for right now, I suggest starting out horizontally. It'll cover a lot of other platforms. So having said that, when you hold the phone horizontally and you look into your phone or your viewfinder, whatever is in that rectangular image is going to be what people are seeing on the screen. For the most part, it might be a person's face or head or product. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that that is predominant and in the screen. And that does not always mean it has to be centered in the rectangular composition. A lot of the times you can have it off to the side a little bit, and you can use a trick called the rule of thirds. And you feel free to Google that rule of thirds. What that means is you're going to break your rectangular composition, the screen, into 3 sections, and basically like slicing them into 3 vertical columns as well as 3 horizontal columns.
It kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe board.
Tic-tac-toe board, exactly. And actually some phones and or cameras will have like a grid that you can see in your viewfinder, and a lot of those are sort of broken down into parts of that the thirds, so you can use that as well. But yeah, it's broken down in sort of a grid, and where these grids kind of intersect, that is a fantastic place to have your main subject. A lot of the times, let's say we're going to use a person for an example. A lot of the times you want the person's eyes to be in one of these horizontal lines, if not an intersection of a vertical and a horizontal third. And sometimes that is off to the side, and that looks good. We are used to seeing that now. So, and knowing this, if you actually go out and watch YouTube or even the news and stuff like that, you will start to notice that they focus on, if they're focusing on a person, their face, their eyes will be on either the top third, usually the top third of the screen, and not the bottom third. And that kind of goes into another point, rolls right into another point, that you don't want too much empty space above the subject's head. That's head space. Anything that's just the background above the subject, again, we're going to go with the person. Anything above the background should not be the majority of the screen. It should not be 2/3 if we're still talking about these thirds. You want to reduce that. You want to focus on the person. So make sure they are in 2/3, if not more, of the composition, and be aware of that head space. Now, it is okay to have a little space above the person's head. You do want that, but you don't want it to be majority of the screen. And sometimes that's a big telltale sign of an amateur, is if you see that odd empty space above somebody's head. So let's keep that out of our shots.
And there's times on Zoom stuff where it looks like Where's Waldo, because their head is clear at the bottom of the screen and it's just peeking up over the bottom of the screen.
Yes, and if you want to go for that, that's funny, but it is still does scream amateur, and like you really don't know what you're doing. And so it's a very easy thing to fix, and adds professionalism to the shot, and actually helps focus on the main thing. And so beware of that.
All right. So now, before you go on, I want to just tell them a goofy story here about once you start doing this and thinking in terms of what the viewfinder is seeing, you can have all kinds of stuff on the outside of the shot that the people watching the video will never see. And an example of this, I saw this guy on Instagram. He was, pretending that he was at the beach. And so he was laying down in the sand, and he had his cell phone above his head shooting a selfie down into the sand, right? Well, when you saw the whole shot, he was at a construction site, and there was a pile of sand that was going to be used in the concrete. He just laid down in the sand and held the selfie over his head and pretended like he was at the beach, right? So I don't want you doing fake stuff like that unless you're doing it funny, but the idea is you'll focus in on what the viewfinder sees, not the whole surroundings of you. Take it away.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you would be surprised that even movies and what's going on right behind the scenes of fantastic shots, because it's only what is in that composition. Okay, so more on that a little bit. Make sure that we have to keep things in focus. Okay, so if you've ever messed around with a camera or a phone and gotten to the focus part, a lot of these will do an autofocus feature for you, especially on your phone. You can touch usually the screen and it will focus on that area. So it's very helpful. Be aware of that. Again, this kind of talks about the headspace. If there's an odd something in the background, a tree or something, an autofocusing camera or phone will sometimes pick up on that, and then your subject is out of focus. And hopefully you're aware of that. But how do you fix that? Well, you would tap it, and then hopefully your phone will focus in on that. But be aware of that. Now, a good rule of thumb is to focus on the eyes, focus on the face, focus on the eyes. If you can get that in focus, usually you'll be okay with everything else. And luckily, hopefully, your phone will stay in focus.
Yeah, because sometimes people get that result where the camera is searching. And so it's going in and out of focus very quickly. And then that's very unprofessional. And most professionals shoot in manual anyway, especially when you have, good camcorders where you have lots of control over the stuff. But just be aware that you don't want stuff going in and out of focus continuously. You can do it theatrically, called a rack focus, where you focus on one thing and the other thing's blurry and then it switches. But that's pretty advanced stuff there. Yeah, tapping the screen a lot of times will tell it where to focus, and you usually want to do it on somebody's face.
Right, and yeah, Tom brought up a good point that yes, a lot of the times, if you really get into this, you're probably going to put it in manual focus and work on that. And actually, you can get some really nice shots, really nice effects with the manual focus, and that just takes a little bit of playing around with your phone camera and learning some of those features. And also, a YouTube video is fantastic. You can also find many of those on how to do that, probably with the exact same model of camera or phone that you have. Now, with what's going on in the shot, you can also kind of pay attention to or be wary of the angle of the shot. So, for example, let's pretend you have a camera very low on the ground, and it's leaning and it's looking up at somebody. And so the person on the screen in the composition is going to maybe look huge and powerful and towering, maybe over. And that actually creates, an emotion from just seeing that shot, and it gives the viewer and the impression of maybe power, maybe overbearing, maybe scariness. And so be aware of that. Now, on the flip side of that, you can move the camera very high, like if it's on the ceiling and it's pointing down at a person. Usually that effect is the opposite. The person looks small, they look maybe belittled, there's some subconsciousness going on in there. And so be wary of that. A lot of product videos, and or information, even in those infomercials, they will focus mostly, keep the center right there in the middle, not very high, not very low. And, the news does that as well. And a lot of videos do that, but you can use that to your advantage. Also, you can also think you're doing something cool and it can be to your disadvantage. So just be aware of the height of the camera and what it's doing.
Yeah, angle. Yeah, and I got a story about that too. And
Go for it.
When I really learned about that, I was one of the only independent pageant producers for Hawaiian Tropic. And so we were doing these big events where these girls were in bikinis and, Hawaiian Tropic contest. We always had to shoot the girls from just slightly low to high angle to make their boobs look bigger. That's the way it was when in the that was the Hawaiian Tropic kind of mandate there. So we always shot a little bit low to high, not so that they looked like thunder thighs, but so that it was a little bit high to make them more prominent. Now, one of the scenes I remember from, it was a movie with Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro. It might have been Meet the Parents or something like that, but they had a shot, where they're in the getting fitted for tuxedos, and Robert De Niro thought that Ben Stiller was smoking dope when it was really his own son. And so Ben Stiller is sitting in there in the dressing room, and Robert De Niro is standing over him. And so they have a real sharp angle down, making Ben Stiller look like really tiny and pitiful and weak. And that's an example of angle of shot, what it does to the final product. All right, there's my boob story.
That's great. Too bad they didn't do it in 3D.
Yeah, right.
All right, anyway. So let's start talking about, since we were talking about angles, the camera can move, and it can actually move while you're shooting, and it can move from one angle to another. It can move from right to left. It can move like a skew. A typical, very familiar, common motion is called panning, a pan, and that would be either turning the camera from left to right, nice smooth from left to right, and you have to imagine what is going on in the screen at this point, or in the composition. If you are moving from left to right, then what's going on in the screen is the background, or actually the whole entire shot, is coming from the right side of the screen and moving left. All right, and so it's the same thing. A pan from the right to the left would make your shot appear to be coming in from the left-hand side of the screen and move in towards the right. Now, this is also great for really fantastic for showing landscapes, or if you're selling a house or something large, you can use it to go from one subject to another subject. The news story can sometimes go from the reporter right to the flaming house, something like stuff like that. It would turn right to it. Those are pans. They are, I don't know if there's really too much subconsciousness going on, such as the high angle, the low angle, but it is noticeable. So sometimes people want the camera to be as minimal and kind of be like a fly on the wall, be very barely moving, sort of like a play almost. And then there's other times where the camera comes in, and maybe there's a fight scene, an action scene. Panning will make you stay in one shot and make you seem like you're still there. So
yeah, you just have to watch the speed, and that, if you go too fast on that landscape, it's going to be blurry. If you go too, usually a landscape, is slower, so you can take it in. But if you're shooting your soccer kid at the soccer field when they're going fast, you may have to even change the shutter speed on the camera, because to try to follow the action, it'll be all blurry on you.
Right. And actually, sometimes, like if you're watching, like in Days of Thunder, a racing movie or something, you want the effect of speed. You
Right.
might want that blur.
Hmm.
You would pan very fast. So there are times for both of those options. And yeah, Tom, you just touched on what I was going to get on a little bit later was changing your shutter speed.
Hmm.
Shutter speed. Basically, when you were recording video, when you're recording film and video, it is taking still images a bunch of time, and usually it's 30 of these images per second, but they call them frames. So it's 30 frames per second or 30 FPS, and that's usually what TVs were commonly showing as well, and VHS and videos and stuff like that. Now there's well, not now, but there's also 60 for FPS, which is obviously it's double the amount of frames taken. So what's that? The benefit of that is when you do have something fast moving like that, you can get more motion, more shots in focus. And so everything looks a lot smoother. It's easier to stay, in focus. You don't get the blur, and that's fantastic for sports and stuff like that. Having said that, when you do 60 frames per second, if it was maybe a person's on stage and they're not moving, they're not, dancing, maybe they're just behind like a pulpit or something, 30 frames per second is fine. It's absolutely fine because the 60 frames per second means that you might have a larger file on your computer and that can come into play, especially if you're, if it's a 2-hour soccer game or something like that. You have to maybe consider that your phone / camera might not be able to handle that. Nowadays, it's not that big of a deal, but it is something to consider. So that is a way to deal with the panning. But really, if you just pan it, especially in landscape and stuff, nice, smooth pace. I actually like to go slower is better because I could fix it in editing if I needed to. I could speed it up. But if it's going too fast and it's blurry, if I slow it down, the blur would still be there and it'd look very weird. So in my opinion, slower is better. But anyway.
And now also with the panning, especially when you're moving the camera and you're holding it in your hands. Yeah, a lot of these cameras have something called image stabilization. So if you jerk a little bit, it's going to cover it for you. But if you are really crazy and holding your hands way out in front of you and trying to go left and right, the picture's going to be all over the place. So one of the techniques is to hold your elbows into your sides to kind of brace the camera, and then move your whole body slowly. Don't try to use your hands alone, and that'll smooth things out for you. And then while we were talking about frame rate, tell them about slow motion.
Okay, in order to do slow motion, we were just talking about 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second. Well, you can actually up the number of frames per second to say like 200, and that would actually take 200 images per second. So you have a lot to work with. And then when you play that back, it plays it very slow. It's very slow, and it actually looks like slow motion, but it's all in focus. So there's no blur, and it doesn't look, everything in the shot is slow. So it doesn't look like it's acting. It's actually because of all of those extra frames. So it looks pretty cool. You can do that in the editing side of things as well, but I actually think doing it with the shutter speed gives you kind of a nicer, crisper,
because you have
effect.
more information. You got 200 shots per second instead of 60. So even it's just going to look better. And then the other side of that would be, well, I forget what it's called when they set a camera up and then you can see the sunrise over 3 or 4 hours, and then it's all played back
Time lapse.
Time lapse, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and so they're taking images. It's
that
almost
could be
still
1
images.
frame per minute or something. It could be something like that.
You edit all that together, play it at a regular speed or even speed it up in editing, and that's when you get those really cool, like the stars are all spinning and stuff like that. It's really cool effect. And that's all frame rates. Now, Tom, you were also talking about using your elbows and just focus on the phone and keep it steady. Yeah, I was about to jump into that as well. We want to make sure that your camera / phone is steady for these shots. One-handed is not the way to go. 2 hands is a whole lot better. And Tom was talking about not digging so much, but putting your elbows into your body and having those two hands on the phone and turning your whole body if you want to do the panning
Now, if you're doing a
motion.
selfie, that's a whole different story. You're
Right.
not going to use two hands, although that would be
No.
interesting. I'd love to watch somebody do that. But
That would look pretty funny. Yeah. Well, you have a selfie stick, and I was
Right.
going to mention that.
Mhm.
The selfie stick is fantastic. It holds the phone and sort of like a clamp, and then you can hold the stick out. The phone is far enough away. You can, I think, can you control it as well? I
Well, yeah,
believe.
yeah, we have they have a lot of them that come with little Bluetooth buttons that you can pair with your phone to turn it on and off, so you don't have to do the like we taught about in the beginning videography, trim the beginning and end where you're going up to the camera and back. However, if you're shooting vertical and it's TikTok or something like that, that's a common thing to walk up and back to the camera. So, a lot of things have changed over the years that used to be taboo, but the one thing about selfie sticks is don't get the one from the dollar store, which by the way is now the $1.25 store. They just raised it up because of all this stuff. But you want to get a really solid one, because the really cheap ones, they flex on you with the heavy phones, and they rattle a little bit. And so the one I have has a little tiny tripod at the bottom, and it's like 5 feet. It'll go up to 5 feet. So I can sit it on a park bench, and it's like, instead of carrying a full-blown tripod, and I can still use it as a selfie stick. So that's handy. But yeah, some of them have Bluetooth controllers, so you can turn the camera on and off with it.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And I have a pretty funny selfie stick story to tell you too. It just happened today. I don't know if you want it on the air, but yeah, okay.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I'll let you.
Yeah.
You can edit it out. Anyway, this is So oddly enough, today, and this is a selfie stick story in a roundabout way. My little kid was on his Chromebook for school, and this is important for school. He's on Google Earth, and he's looking at his neighborhood, looking at grandma's neighborhood. He types in the Great Wall of China, and when it, the Earth spins to it, and you can like go to Street View. So he goes to Street View, and it takes you to a hotel, and you start turning around in the hotel, and there's a guy with a selfie stick standing in the middle of the hotel room, and nothing else on.
Oh.
He's totally buck naked from head to toe, and you can see it if you move the 3D view. And he's also holding a Coke bottle, and that's it. And so the kids come and get me. They said, "You got to see something inappropriate on the computer." I said, "What?" So I go over there, and then how like those 3D cameras are a little weird.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say that his personal selfie stick was skewed from the movement. It was like almost like a 90-degree. Anyway.
Oh my God.
So I said, "Okay, this is interesting." I said, "How did you do that?" So my son showed me how he did it. It did it again. So I said, "Oh boy." So I contacted his teacher. And so now it's gone through the courses of, it's now getting in contact with the Department of Technology, and they've also complained with Google. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, okay. So fun selfie stick story. And so along those lines of stabilizing your phone's camera, there's other options. Tripods have there's many options of tripods, giant ones, small ones. They have ones that actually clamp to lamps. They have they actually just grip to certain things, tree branches. They're very neat, very cheap. There's also gimbals. Gimbals are really cool because they help steady your phone/camera, so you can get very dramatic theatrical shots. You can, and they're very smooth. And
yeah, but it takes practice. Tell them about.
Oh yeah, so Tom had me learn how to do one, and it's tricky because not only does it balance your phone, but you can tilt, angle, turn the phone while you're moving, and it can also be a tripod. It can also be a tripod, and it has software that can follow your face, so I can tell it to follow me, and that goes back to that focus and all of that stuff. It's very neat, but it's got a learning
practice
curve. Yeah, but those tripods that I was talking about, they are fantastic. Amazon, you can get one for less than $20. It's a good thing in a pinch. It also works well if you want to clamp it to your computer. So instead of a webcam, you can use that and get a little bit nicer theatrical shot. So take a look at those. There's another option called a monopod, and it's the cousin of the. I just clapped. Sorry. It's pretty much the cousin of a tripod. It's just one pole that you would steady and it would hold your camera
Like
or
a
phone.
walking stick almost. I mean,
Very
so
similar to a walking
yeah.
stick.
Now,
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to say about the tripod, just resist if you have an old photographic tripod laying in your, attic somewhere. It's okay if it's totally still and not going to move, but a video tripod is technically called a fluid head, because if somebody's standing behind it and there's movement, they can move it smoothly, left, right, on an angle, all up and down and everywhere. But a photographic tripod is usually only horizontal and vertical, and it won't move smoothly. So, and there's various levels of fluid head, from just friction to something that's actually got, like the fancy one we have in the studio, has got actual, like, I don't know, like power steering fluid in it. It's just so smooth, so there's levels of those. But there's all kinds of, sometimes you want the shot to be totally still. But I've had two people work for me that were retired from Hollywood. And the one guy said, I had 50 people would run and get me a cup of coffee. I had $500,000 in lights and $1 million in cameras. And he held his hand out with his cell phone in, and he said, nowadays this is an acceptable shot. Sometimes the movement, if skillfully done, can add the excitement to your video. But that's getting a little advanced there. Most of the time, people that try that and don't know what they're doing, it's just so sloppy you couldn't use it. But a little bit of movement in the hands of a good editor can be good for you. But for the most part, try to keep calm with your camera. Oh, one other thing I want to say about shooting the shots is reduce or eliminate zooming during the shot. Most pros do not zoom. The only zooms you see are really slow zooms where, they're just honing in on somebody as the tear drops out of their eye in an interview or something. But if you zoom too much, it just makes people nauseous. So avoid zooming. Okay, so what's your next topic there, Mark?
Right. So yeah, you're right. Zooming brings it sort of brings attention back to the camera. And so it can almost take you out of, if it's a story or a scene or something, it can take you out of that. So yeah, be very sparingly with the zooming. Well, let's talk about some lighting.
Yeah.
Now, lighting doesn't have to be terribly difficult. There's a couple things that you do want to be aware of. Avoid having a light right behind your subject, having a light aiming towards you. Even the sunlight, you want to try to get that thing behind the camera, not behind the subject. So if you're ever shooting, I say, outside, you got to look at where the sun is and if you're the cameraman, put your back to it. Try to use that. Or off to the side, but for the most part, back. You do not want the setting sun behind somebody, and unless you're getting really dramatic. And most of the time, avoid having light behind the person. It's terrible. You will just get a silhouette. And so, having said that, you do need some sort of light, usually in the front of the subject, not smack dab in the front of them, but something to at least illuminate them, the subject, and get something in the composition that viewers can see. Now, there are many books and lessons and classes on lighting. I would suggest to Google and look up 3-point lighting. That's one of the easiest. And that would be a main light right on the subject. And then it would also be sort of a side light that's not as bright, but still on the subject. And then we have we actually do have an interesting light. It's a back light, but it's not aimed at the camera. It's actually lighting up the back of the subject. Anyway.
And it's much less bright, so it doesn't, it's not right, what he was telling you about putting a light behind somebody. It's less bright, and it kind of sets you apart from the background. It hits you in the back of the head and shoulders and stuff. And if I was going to give just a couple tips, and we teach you all of the details in the VIP video weekend, but if the light is higher than the subject, that's better. Because what happens is that sometimes you can even see this on TV, these people making these mistakes, since a lot of people are on Zoom nowadays on their interviews. But if the light is coming directly level with your eyes and you happen to wear glasses, the glasses just light up like you're a cyborg because the light is bouncing right back into the webcam. So if the light is high and hitting you in your glasses, it bounces down away from the camera lens. So that's one thing, is if the light is higher, that's better for you. You can adjust the intensity of it by how close it is, how far away. You can use natural light sometimes, but you can't depend on it. That's the problem. It's going to change during the course of an hour. A light that was beautiful could be gone now, and it's just because it's not hitting the window anymore. So there's another thing you probably want to look on YouTube called lighting with cookies, and then put my name on it, because there's more than one person that has done a lighting with cookies thing. But this is how you light up a background really cheaply to look really gorgeous. And so lighting with cookies. Cookies is short for a theatrical term called a cucaloris, which is a thing where you blow light through it and it makes these beautiful patterns. So I got about an 8-minute video teaching you how to do that for pennies, making gorgeous backgrounds for your video. Okay, back to you.
Okay, great. So, right. And when Tom was talking about this cookie video, which is good video, and he's talking about the background, don't get that confused with a backlight, even though it sounds similar. The backlight is on the subject, and that's the one that he's saying is high up usually. And it's usually a lower intensity. Not all of the lights are the same intensity. And this one is a little bit lower, creating a glow on the subject. But then there is also a background, like a wall or a sheet or the woods if it's outside. So don't get confused, backlight and background. Mm-hmm. But take a look at any 3-point lighting and that lighting with the cookies. That one is really neat. And yes, it's very simple to do, and it makes a really nice effect. Okay, so, well, I was talking about shooting outside and talking about sunlight and a little bit of lighting. Why don't we talk about wind? If you're going to be outside, you're going to have wind. And that kind of leads us right into one of, if not the most important part of video, one of the most important parts of video, and that's audio. And I think we mentioned this in the editing video as well, or in the editing podcast as well, that audio is very important. And nowadays, there's many options for different mics. You can get mics that are cordless or wireless. You can get mics that have cords. You can get mics that clip on to somebody's clothes. You can get a microphone that is handheld. You can get a microphone that's overhead, like a boom is what they're called, a boom microphone, boom mic. Or actually, the microphone is a shotgun mic that is on a boom. However, so there's many options, but they all are towards the same goal: good audio. You can fix a bad shot if you have good audio, but you cannot fix bad audio if you have a good shot. So really focus on some sort of microphone. And then also, if you're ever doing anything outside with a microphone, you're going to come in contact with wind.
All right, before you tell them about wind, I just want to give everybody that are on iPhones a warning. iPhones are very, very, very times 10 picky on getting a microphone through the lightning port. So make sure you can return it if it doesn't work with your iPhone, because a lot of them just won't, no matter what you do. So make sure they guarantee that it will, and then try it out and be able to return it if it doesn't, because they're extremely picky compared to Android.
Right, but it's really important.
It's still important, yeah, absolutely.
Important.
Now, if you're shooting and holding the camera in front of your face, you probably don't need an external microphone. You can the microphone is within, a foot of your mouth, and you get beautiful audio. But as soon as every foot away it gets from you, the worse it's going to be. So keep that in mind.
Yes.
All right. So wind. Yeah. Do you remember our wind thing? We were like extreme wind when we did the photo shoot or the video shoot for Fatso Tennis. Mark's out there, I'm out there, we're freezing to death, the wind's blowing like crazy. We actually had to put toilet paper on the clip-on microphone and put it under 3 layers of my clothes just to barely get the shot get good enough audio to use. That was about as bad as it gets. So tell them what you can do with stuff to watch out for the wind.
Well, sure, definitely. And a lot of the times when you are shooting video, when you first get to a location, and get things set up, do a little test, play it back, and make sure you can hear how it sounds when you play it back, because you don't want to be surprised when you get back and start editing. So definitely do a test. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
so
your mind will play tricks on you because you're in the environment and you won't notice what the microphone notices. And then you say, oh my God, we did all this shoot for nothing because it's all crap.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you can still hear the person talk. Like if I'm the cameraman, I have headphones on, I can still hear the person talking in the room. And so sometimes that gets mixed and I think it sounds great, but then I play it back and it's terrible, it's quiet or something. So I don't like to have to deal with those. And it happens, but I try to avoid it. And so double check your audio before you start getting serious. And even midway through, I like to do it a lot. So I'm safe. But we did have wind, and there's some options for wind. And Tom even mentioned one, wrapping the microphone in like a tissue paper, something, cotton ball, maybe something that will help kind of absorb and muffle that wind sound. Most good microphones have, oh geez, what's it called?
Well,
the little like
they have a foam,
yeah.
a foam thing, but then an upgraded foam thing is actually called a dead cat. It's a real fuzzy looking thing they can be very expensive on bigger microphones for sure, but the foam thing is what usually comes with your microphone, that you don't need it indoors so much. But if you're outdoors, you definitely should put the little foam cover on. And then if it's a lot of wind, you buy yourself an external or an extra dead cat. And then keep in mind, even with a dead cat, you might have to stick it under your clothes if it's really bad, or hide it in your hair or something like that.
Yeah, there's dead cat in your hair.
Yeah.
So yes, and aren't they called windscreens? Oh, that's terrible that I don't know what that is right now. It's off the top of my head. But anyway, it's a little microphone thing that goes right over it. It works fantastic. So be aware of that if you're going to buy a mic. Hopefully it comes with that. And if not, you're going to have to maybe move up to those other options. Okay, so we did wind, we did sunlight, we did lighting. I'm starting to run out of stuff.
Well, one thing about shooting outside is the best time to shoot outside is an overcast day. Because one thing we didn't tell you about lighting was that diffused lighting looks nicer. I mean, if it's sharp, real harsh lighting, that's like, hospital, emergency room. If it's really, really subdued lighting, that's more theatrical. Diffusion is a pleasant looking shot. It's not real harsh shadows, and it's not too dark, more subdued. So it's kind of in the middle. But the biggest diffuser on Earth is an overcast sky. That's a beautiful time to shoot. But can't always control that. So if you do have bright sunlight, there's some things you can do, because bright sunlight causes more problems than you really, because it makes people squint. That's one thing. And they hardly notice it, but they're squinting, or they have to wear dark glasses, which means that you don't see their eyes, and people like to see your eyes. And it causes them to sweat. That's another thing. So a couple things you can do is you could go to a park where they have pavilions. These are places people have picnics, and they have a roof but no walls. So you can get in the pavilion and shoot and have a beautiful background of trees that's like 100 yards away maybe. That's really nice. It'll be out of focus. That's a thing called bokeh. Out of focus backgrounds is really a theatrical, beautiful shot. You can run into the gas station before they throw you out, and with the big overhang over the pumps, you could do a quick shot there. Or you could, if you had a helper, bring, we have this giant white thing you can fold it up into a small white thing, but it's a reflector. And you just get somebody to hold it over the person's head that you're shooting to block the sun during the shot, or you can put it on a stand or something. But bright sunlight can cause you just all kinds of trouble and harsh looking shots. So that's something to avoid. If you get an overcast day, that's beautiful.
And when you're inside, if you don't have any lights, you can, one cheap, easy way is Chinese paper lanterns. You can get them on Amazon, or if there's a Pier 1 still around, I think they're out of business. But Chinese paper lanterns diffuse the light a little bit. And then if you really want to go to the next step beyond that, get a dimmer. You can maybe get a dimmer that's pluggable, so you can plug that light into it. And if you dim down those lights from the Chinese paper lantern, you can really get some nice soft diffuse lights. And there's other tricks and techniques as well.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
I've seen people use toilet paper.
Well,
almost,
on one shoot we had to run to something like Walmart. Walmart didn't exist back in those days, but we got a translucent shower curtain, and we hung it on a clothesline and blew the light through it, and it was just beautiful light, but it was, it was a bunch of hoops to jump through. But you can get LED lights now for $25, little tiny things. They're like the size of maybe 2 packs of playing cards, and they have their own set of diffusers, and they have different light gels. That's another thing we didn't tell them about, is lighting gels can make the light different colors, especially background lights. That's nice for that. But there's just all kinds of tips and tricks, and we'd love to teach them to you. We have a whole TV studio here. We've been running for 20 years over in a building next to the retreat center here in Virginia Beach. That's where the VIP video weekend is handled, and Mark shoots you. And we've had, I think the world's record is 53 videos. 2 people did in one video. Is that right?
I think that is right.
Yeah, 53. And we edit them for you, put the graphics on, and send them to you after you get home, and then teach you all the stuff that's how to use the videos, basic video editing, how to use them on social media. There's so many things you need to know about YouTube that Mark does a whole session on YouTube marketing. And then the next day, we go out into the field and do that where we just, anywhere you happen to be, you can shoot a marketing video and tie it into your marketing message. And that's what we teach you the whole day, the next day. And it's just amazing the kind of great shots you can get that nobody else is going to have. See, that's the whole thing is we do lots of talking head videos, yeah, but these ones that are on location that tie into your message, boy, very powerful. So you have us for 2 days to really jump up your video expertise. That's pretty good there, Mark. I think we got enough to have them shooting enough video to make themselves sick.
I think so. But one other tip,
Okay.
really quick, and it's actually important, especially for these phone people. And I've probably been guilty of it myself. Clean your lens. It can be easily forgotten, especially with phones. So be aware of that.
Well, yeah, because people are shoving them in their pockets and all that stuff. They get pretty nasty, probably. And one other thing we should mention is how to get the videos the heck off of the camera. To do something with them.
Geez, yes. I mean, there's multiple ways now. Sometimes if your camera's connected to a cloud device, it could go up to there. Then on whatever you want to do from there on your computer, you connect to the cloud account and download it back onto the computer.
That's the way I happen to do it. But some people upload directly to YouTube. I'm not sure that's if that compresses it too much, or see, folks, because you can have a full-blown video, but to do certain things with it, it has to be compressed and make it much smaller, which also reduces the quality. So I like, mine automatically uploads to my cloud, then I download it from the cloud, and I edit off the iPhone because it's a much bigger screen. And so it's much easier for me to edit. But it's important that you figure that out. You can use a cord or you can use the cloud. And a lot of times, I think my phone has to be on Wi-Fi and plugged in. I can't remember. I don't think it has to be plugged in, but it has to be on Wi-Fi for sure before it's going to upload. It won't. You really don't want to do it on your phone plan because it's using up enormous data. That's just something you have to pay attention to for your phone, is getting it the heck off of the phone, and probably with a wire or to your cloud account on your own good fast Wi-Fi is probably the best idea. There we go. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mark. Tell them about your books.
Oh, yeah. The most recent one is the YouTube Marketing Manual. It was updated just last year and has most of the recent changes and updates on how to use YouTube and then how to use those features towards your marketing, your business. And it's been, geez, I think this is version 6 right now. I'm not sure. It's been around for a while. And so make sure you do get the most recent one if you take a look. And if you do, send me an email and I'll help you out. I'll give you any, if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, it's Marc as M-A-R-C and then Bullard, B-U-L-L-A-R-D. And you won't believe the number of little details. I mean, most people get a YouTube account, shove a video up there and then pat themselves on the back. But no, there's so many little details of, that's why you're hearing crickets chirping and nobody's seeing your videos, because there's all these other things that you have to do with regard to the header graphics and the transcription and the keywords and the regular description of the video and where to put your links in the description and all that stuff. You got to do it right, or just you're losing a lot of potential views and potential customers from it. So Marc covers all that in the book. So all right, well, so thanks, Marc, appreciate it. And folks, check out the screwthecommute.com/video weekend if you have any interest in going deep into this. We can either do it with you personally, or if you put a group together, we can. We have to have at least 4 for a group, and if you get 4, you come free. So we can have as many as 5 as the maximum that we can handle for that weekend. So check it out, and we will catch you on the next episode. See you later.